Hello everyone, my name is J.S. Matthews and welcome back to Writing and Role-Playing. Today we're going to pick up where we left off with this rather awesome Wizard's Tower craft I did about a month and a half ago. And it still needs some details. We got to paint it up and we got to add some nice stuff to it, make it look good. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So sit back, relax, and watch me transform this pile of foam into something that looks really nice. First thing we got to do is get a nice layer of black down. I always mix my black paint with Mod Podge. I think that came from Jeremy at Black Magic Craft. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's where that kind of initial mixture came from. But it really gives your foam a nice thick layer. I also end up painting my wood with this as well. I was thinking of staining my wood there, but you know, I just decided against it. Just figured, you know, I'll try some painting techniques that I haven't tried before. So we got everything covered in a nice, solid, thick layer of black and that Mod Podge. Again, that really helps harden up those pieces of foam, and again, just really brings everything together. And this is when your craft really starts looking good, is when you get that first layer of paint down. That's when it really starts looking good. So the first thing we're gonna do here is take some brown, and I just have like I think it's chocolate brown, I don't even know, but it's brown, and I just decided to throw a nice layer of that down on the base here, and you're gonna see I'm gonna do it on the other base as well with the big rock formation. But I am gonna add some grout down, a pretty thick layer of that, but this is just to cover up that black in case the grout doesn't cover everything. And again, just give it a nice layer and just kind of mush it around, and it doesn't have to look perfect because we're gonna cover it up anyways. Now here we're going to come in and hit the other base as well, only this one I'm just going to kind of get bits and pieces of it. I'll even get some brown up on the rocks as well, and you know, just kind of throw it in where eventually I'm going to add the grout and then probably some grass as well. And yeah, so just kind of pick some places out and just kind of covered it in some brown. Just pick those little outcroppings that are a bit more straight. Then I went straight into a gray. This is a pewter gray, and I just start mixing it in with that brown. I didn't even wait for the brown to dry. Again, if I mix it up a little bit, that's fine. You know, rock formations really have a lot of different colors to them. Now, I chose gray because I wanted to paint the stones of the building a white. I was thinking something like Minas Tirith, so I wanted the stone to actually, the rock formation to stand out from the stone of the actual building. So we're gonna hit it with this gray, and again, I just get a nice, you know, a decent layer on my paintbrush and just kind of start spreading it around and just kind of mix it in with that brown, so it really kind of gives you a good contrast between those two colors and then blends and kind of mixes them together. I think it looked pretty good. Now, when it comes to painting rock features, you don't just want to stick with gray. I'm going to show you some other little techniques that are really going to make this really stand out to the rest of the build. But again, I always kind of start with a little bit of gray. Sometimes I'll actually start with a brown and then dry brush a gray over it. And I've seen other people start with a tan and then, you know, go from there. But for today, we're going to start with the gray, and I think it actually turns out pretty good. But I get a little more careful here at the end where I'm trying to not get it on the actual stones of the building, and I think it turned out pretty good there. Next up, we're going to start painting the stones, and I'm going to do this on the other one as well, but I just grabbed a linen color. So this is linen, and I forget which company makes it, but I'm just going to, again, I get a pretty thick layer on there. It's not a dry brush, but it's not just a heavy layer of paint. You can definitely see the black still coming through, and I just hit all the stones with this. Again, my inspiration for this was Minas Tirith from the Lord of the Rings movies, and I really liked that sort of white stone look to it. And you'll see I'm trying to keep some under layers of the black, and so again, I don't get a full brush full of paint. I really do just get a little bit on there and kind of mix it around a little bit on my palette, and then I start brushing it on. It takes a little longer, but honestly, I think it really adds some character to this, especially when you see the later dry brushes and the washes. They're really gonna bring out these different contrasts of light and dark, and that's really what I wanted here. And again, I just hit every bit of stone with this, And, you know, one of the things I really learned is just to take my time. I struggle with that so much. I get so excited to get done with the craft that sometimes I just, you know, I don't pay attention to the details. I just blast through things and it doesn't turn out as good as it should. And personally, it doesn't bother me that much, but I'm trying to get a little better about that and kind of break that habit of not taking my time. And I think I did a better job with that on this craft, at least until the end. There's a few things I think I might eventually do with it, but I'll talk about those at the end, just some little improvements I think I could have made. But overall, I loved this color, this like linen color. I think it turned out great. I then grabbed that brown, the same ground I used for the ground, but I added some orange to it. I mixed in a good amount of orange, and that's what I'm going to use for the interior wood. And you're going to see I'm going to use roughly the same color for the exterior, but I'm going to dry brush them and paint them up differently with layers. And so that way you'll actually see a difference between the interior wood and the exterior wood. Now this next phase here, I actually 3D printed some doors here, and one of them I 3D printed was for this top part here. The only issue is I did 3D print them so that they would open and close, but two of them broke during some testing and some moving around to stuff, and unfortunately I had to kind of just glue this one in place. Again, one of those mistakes that I wish I could go back and fix, but I can't. I don't know what scale I printed it at. I kind of deleted my file, so I would have to redo that, and I was a little worried, so I just ended up gluing it. Not a big deal. And then again, just grabbing that same linen color, and I'm just going over all the stones with it. Every single bit, this base, and then I'm gonna go up each of the parts of the tower and cover those as well. But again, it's kind of painstaking process, takes a little time, but it's really fun. Once you really get going and start seeing these colors on there, it really starts coming together. To be honest, the first layer of paint I never like. I always think like, ugh, this doesn't look very good. It's once you start getting all the colors on and then you start getting the dry brushing and then the wash. When that wash hits, oh man, that's when I start getting excited about the painting. Is when that first wash goes on and you just see all the little details come out. It blends your whole build or your whole paint together, and you know, on the build, and it just looks great. And again, I love that tan color. I think that little linen color looks really good. It's just enough white and just enough off-white to really differentiate it from the rest of the stone and the wood, and it just really stands out. It makes the tower look very beautiful. And when I add some more details to it, it makes it look very old, and that's what I want. I want this to be a wizard tower where the further up you get, the newer the stuff gets. And yeah, it was kind of, that's the way I always looked at wizards towers. It was kind of like weird, you know, they get kind of janky as you're building higher, as the wizard's getting older and he's like just kind of adding stuff on. But again, I grabbed that brown, again, lots of orange mixed into that brown to kind of give it a very rich and warm color. That's kind of what I wanted. And I just went over and I hit every wood part with this same color, whether it be on this tower or the other tower. Just really covered all these things, every stair. And again, painting that tower was kind of a pain in the butt. I don't think I would do it beforehand. I never really like painting beforehand. I like painting after, but it definitely was hard getting into each of those little spots. So just be aware of that. You might want to paint it beforehand. Personally, I don't really care. I'm okay with you know, it's kind of a pain, but it doesn't bother me. I just take my time and just touch up each of those spots. Make sure I got, you know, every piece of that wood, painting across there. And yeah, this is when you really start loving these paint jobs. Is you got the black and the brown, and then you're gonna start getting the tan in there, and man, it just starts to pop, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. And that's one of the things I really like. I love that brown I put on there. Man, it just looks so good. It really gives the tower a very warm feeling, and I like that. And again, a little dry brushing will take a little bit of that warmth away, but it does make it look, it gives it that wood feeling. Then I went right back to that tan and painted all the stones there. Now, I wasn't sure how I was going to do the floor. If I were to do this again, this is one of the mistakes I think I made. I should have cut up some cardstock and made squares for the floor, and then I could have painted those the same color and then dry brushed them, and it would have looked really good. Just kind of made some tiles, just very small square tiles for the flooring. I didn't do that. It does have some details on it already, and I figured, you know what, I'll just use those. They're not perfect, but again, sometimes you spend so much time on a craft, you really just got to move on. And you can see here, this is where I start putting on the white paint there, that linen paint. And I just decided to cover all this. And if you notice, I tried to do like almost like a dry brush, and it wasn't working out that well. You can see the brush strokes there. So I just started loading it up, and I was like, you know what, that wash that I put on is gonna fill it in. And so I just started hitting this thing with a heavy amount of this paint, and that really helped. At first I was a little worried. I was like, oh, is this gonna look terrible? Once I got a good thick layer on there though, it really helped, and it really brought out those details. And again, you can see those little squares that are already on there. I think I made an okay choice not putting the you know, kind of cardstock squares on there, but I definitely think they would have improved it. I think they would have added that little bit of depth, a little bit of layer on there. But you know, if I would do it again, if I had more time, I would definitely do that. But for the sake of getting this video to you guys, I was like, nah, I'm not going back through. We'll just paint it up, hit it with a wash. And again, sometimes that's just the way it is. Sometimes you don't get to be perfect. You know, I tell my students this all the time is, you know, if you're a perfectionist, sometimes doing your best is a B, and that's okay. And you know what? You may have other stuff going on, and that stuff more important. So that's just the way it is. Now, the next thing we're doing is hitting the roof here. I decided to go with a teal. This teal's pretty strong. I end up toning it down quite a bit and doing a second coat. I actually put some black in it and really darkened it up. So this first, it looks good. It doesn't look bad, but it just looked a little too new for what I was going for. But I love the color. I think that tan and then the brown and then this teal really just come together so well. And it looks, again, it looks very Minas Tirith-ish. And I liked that. That's what I was going for. Then I hit the other side of the roof, same color, and I'm also going to do the top of the tower in the same way. It's always fun painting the you know, what are those called? Roof tiles, the shingles. Probably learned some words there, huh? But I like painting the shingles. It always brings stuff together and makes the roof look so much better. Next up, we got the top here. This is where I noticed that little top piece. I really didn't like that. I actually ended up ripping it off. And so that really helped kind of fix my roof there. It looked a little weird, that last shingle on the top. So I do end up ripping that off. The other thing I do is I actually come in after I paint this, and I took my little clippers for sprues. It's like a sprue cutter, and it almost looks like a little pair of wire cutters. And I actually clipped off the edges of each of those shingles to make them look just a little more unique. You'll see it later in the video. But I really liked it. I didn't like the square shingles here. If I ever do something like this again, I'm not using square shingles. I got a little lazy and I thought it would look fine, but these I don't like. I would definitely make them, definitely clip off those edges and make them kind of like a little hexagon. Here I am with that, the brown again, lots of orange mixed in. You can see it, it has that real warm color, especially being on the interior. I really want that warm color on the interior. I really want the inside of this, you know, this tower to feel good, to feel warm, and to feel like it's different than the exterior. And that orange and stuff really does it. I also ended up painting the inside there with that little ladder that goes up. I kind of liked that. That was kind of fun. And yeah, just hit every single layer with that. And then I took roughly the same color. I think I added a tiny bit more. Oh no, you know what? It's the same color. I ended up doing some dry brushing that looks different. So that's what'll set this apart. So it does look like it's the same wood initially, but as we go on, you're gonna see the differences pop between the exterior wood and the interior due to the fact that it's gonna be weathered, the sun's hitting it, rain's hitting it, all that. I also had to paint every single stair, which one of the frustrating things, you can kind of see it in this video, those stairs, when I spray painted them, the spray paint came out like very dry and it like stuck to it in like little bits. There's the top of the tower I ripped off, by the way, and you can see the shingles I changed there. I clipped off the edges. But yeah, weird spray painting. You can see it on those shingles as well. It came out like solid, like these solid little dots almost. So that was kind of frustrating, but that's okay. Here I am taking a dry brush. Now this is a pretty, it's not a heavy dry brush, but it's definitely more of like a medium dry brush. It's not light. And this is a mushroom color. You can see there, it's like a brown, little bit of gray in there. It's like a, yeah, it's a mushroom color. If you're thinking about it, yeah, it'll make sense. But I tried to get that over that gray again to try and differentiate the colors in the rock. When I add the wash to it, it'll really tie everything together. But when you look at rocks, it's not just gray all the time. It's got a little bit of brown, a little bit of tan in there. And so that's what I was trying to simulate with this, is just get some of that brown in there and really kind of lighten it up a little bit in certain areas and darken it. And yeah, it ended up, I think this might end up being the best stone I've ever painted. And again, carving that out of foam was a blast. Covering it with some spackle and then just that layer of black Mod Podge and paint really smoothed out some areas, and it looks really good. Next thing I did was I got some pure white and I start dry brushing the stone, all the stone. And I'm coming from an upper angle, so I start dragging the brush down. So I'm hitting the edges of the stone around the outside there, but I'm leaving the bottom sort of a different color. And you can start seeing, look at that linen with the black underneath it. Some of it almost has like a yellowish brown look, and some has a very white look, and some has a very gray look. And just with a little bit of dry brushing, you're starting to see the differences really pop in this stone. And again, I love this painting for the stone, this technique. I'm going to be using this on my terrain from now on. When I paint more buildings like this, I'm definitely going to use the tan, the linen, and then following up with a white dry brush. And man, does it just look good. So I go over all the stone with that, hit it up real nice. Again, top to bottom. That's what I do. I don't hit it usually from the bottom. I'll maybe do a little bit just to kind of draw that out, but same thing over here. Again, you got to be careful with this. You don't want to hit your brown. And I started doing the floors a little bit just to kind of bring out some of those details and give it some differentiation. It looks very nice. It looks like somebody really cut this stone foundation. And it turned out really great. Turned out better than I could have hoped. I'd never tried anything like this before, especially on this big of a build. But man, that white and that linen just look great together. Here we are at the top. Again, I start on the edges there, and then I start pulling it in. And I'm trying to make the edges really nice and bright so it'll differentiate it from the rest of that tower top. I think this actually really helped it. I was a little worried about the top of the tower. I thought it looked a little too bland, and adding these different variations in color really actually helped it. And especially once I hit it with the wash, man, it just pulls everything together, and I couldn't have been happier with this paint job. So if you're looking for some easy to paint, you know, stonework, look at that. I think that turned out great. I love it. The very subtle variations. Looks like some of it's weathered, some of it's still bright white. Yeah, I love that paint style. I am definitely going to emulate that in some of my other paint jobs, especially now that I have a big 3D printer that I can use to print terrain, which will definitely be in a future video, which I'm very excited to share with you guys. But here is it all just kind of dry brushed up. Before we do the black wash though, I took some more of that brown and I added even more orange to it. And this is where I get almost like a dry brush. This is maybe a medium dry brush again. And just kind of start hitting the edges of all the wood and just giving it, again, a subtle variation in color. And just hit a little bit there. I hit the outsides of each step and just kind of dragged it around. And again, this is where I had to learn patience. I wanted to be done, but I realized, you know what, if I just touch it up a little bit, take my time, it really added to this entire build. And with the wood on the outside, I actually hit each beam just kind of, you know, using sort of like vertical strokes to kind of hit each beam. I do a little bit of side to side here and there, but I don't go all the way to the bottom. So what you're going to start seeing is a variation from top to bottom, where the middle of each of these, you know, these wood planks are going to look almost like they have a little glow to them, you know, real nice, but then the bottom and top are going to be a little darker. And I do the same thing on the inside, and it turned out really good. Again, nice bit of orange. You know, one of the things I realized when highlighting things is instead of just adding white or something, go up a little bit on the color wheel and just add some of that kind of color. So here I'm dry brushing. Instead of just adding more orange, I add a tiny bit of yellow to it. So you see it becomes almost like a gold, but when it dries, it really mixes with that orange and that brown, and it gives it almost like a weathered look, and it looks really good on your wood when you do that. Here's another one of those doors I 3D printed. This one's much bigger. Again, this one, I broke one of the hinges off. Pretty sad about it. I just wasn't being careful with it. I kind of wasn't paying attention to what I was doing, shook it a little too much, and one of the hinges broke. So it still does open and close, but yeah, not as good as it should have been, but that's okay. I decided to paint it obviously the exact same way I was doing before, so I grabbed that tan and just kind of, you know, give it a heavy dry brushing there. I realize now I'm like, I didn't dry brush it, I gotta really paint it on there. So you're gonna see me really slather on some of that tan, that linen paint. And makes the stonework look the exact same as the other stones I painted, and it turned out really well. So I just hit both the top and bottom with that, just cover everything, and looked pretty good right there. And I painted a couple others up there. I have a couple different doors still to put on. And I'll show you kind of where each of those goes. Next up, I took some dryad bark and I painted all the doors with that, at least any of the doors that were wood. And this one I did the dryad bark, and then I took I think that's Iron Warriors. I forgot what that's called. Forgot which paint that is, but it's Citadel paint. It's like a dark iron. And I just kind of painted these little iron bars with it on all the doors. And I think it turned out really good. I like the way it looks. Really good contrast there between the two colors. And then I just did that same technique with the wood where I hit the middle of it with lighter colors, especially orange, and it just lightens it up. That is probably the best wood I have ever painted right there. I think that door looks phenomenal. I don't know why, but when you paint a good wood grain, man, does it stand out, and it makes everything else look better. Here we are gluing the door together finally, and this is going to be the front door to the Wizard's Tower. And right there is where that hinge actually starts to break because I just twisted it a little bit. And eventually the top hinge fell off, but it still works. It's all good, mostly. Here's the second door, and then we had a third one, which is like almost like a jail cell door. I kind of figured we could turn the basement either into a jail cell or a storage room, and I thought that door looked really good for it. Painted it up same way. And now all we got to do is glue those onto our build. So all I did was grab some super glue here and put a little bit on the bottom. You don't want to use super glue when you're dealing with foam. You want to use the tacky glue, but super glue is fine. And I think I ended up actually using tacky glue instead. Yeah, I switched to it for the other doors, and just get a good layer on there, both on the sides there and the bottom, because they're gonna touch against those foam bricks, and that again will just add a little bit of stability to it, and just kind of fit it in there. And yeah, that looks really good. Again, one of the things I wanted to keep in mind was playability with this. I wasn't just going for looking good, I wanted it to be playable. One of the ideas that I had was actually creating some magnetized walls, which I may do someday to kind of fill in all those gaps, but for right now, I was more concerned with playability than I was just looks. That's why I kind of like that little, you know, just the outlines of the bricks. Here we are doing a final dry brush. You can see I believe I've already done the black wash here. I forgot to kind of mark that when I was videotaping, but I believe the black wash is already done. So I'm doing kind of a final set of dry brushes. I grabbed, I think, some of the linen and just kind of hit the stone, and then this is some more of the white. I just hit all of the stonework on the actual, you know, buildings with that white again, and just really draw out that contrast. And you can see what that black wash does. It really ties everything together. It gives you some nice darker and lighter areas. And again, hit the stones with that white, and you're just going to see another level of variation. And look at that. It looks so good. I loved having that little bit of white on the top, a little brighter, and then it just gets darker as you go down on the stones. And it really just brought everything out. And then for the blue, I actually took the same color teal and I added some light blue to it, and then I just kept adding more and more and more light blue until at the end I actually dry brushed it with just straight up light blue. And then you could just see, look how good those shingles look when I cut off those edges. I really liked that. I did it on most of the other ones as well, and I really liked the way that turned out. Next thing, I actually added some grout. You can see it there. I didn't do that on camera, probably should have, but just kind of forgot to record. And you can see the grout's still wet when I start adding in my flocking. So this is just some cheap flocking. I think it's actually just sawdust mixed with paint. I didn't make it myself, but I just ordered it online for cheap. I'll probably start making some of my own. But I'm just gonna press it in to the glue into that wet grout, and it's really going to solidify. I'll also do a little bit of spray over the top where I'm just going to add some glue to some water and just spray it over the top. As you can see, that really brings out some of that. I was kind of brushing off some of the grout there. You can see it kind of got everywhere, but it looks all right. Here I am just kind of throwing down some tacky glue, mushing around my finger, and then I'm going to throw that flocking on this as well. And I want to get it up the sides of those stones. Again, if you've seen stones that are old, they have a lot of growth on them, whether it's moss or some grass, stuff like that. Some areas where dirt has settled. Anywhere like that, I decided to put some flocking down. And again, it really adds to that gray and the brown, and it takes, adds a little color in that you really need. And I really like the way this looks. I may come back sometime and add a little bit of static grass. I actually got a static grass applicator for Christmas. My mom bought it for me, which was awesome. I'm super excited for it. We always draw names every year. My mom got me this year, and she knew what I needed, so got me a nice static grass applicator. We'll test that out in some videos coming up here in January and the rest of the year. But here we are, just kind of adding in a little bit of glue here on the shingles there, making them look kind of moldy and nasty. This is actually where I finally broke the door, because I was shaking the excess flocking off, and the door just snapped, and I was a little sad. Didn't get it on camera. I'm okay with that. I don't want to see that. But yeah, maybe someday I'll try to fix that door. But for right now, it looks fine. It still works. It stays on there. Here's kind of the upper part here. I grabbed some little vines I had. I think these came from the dollar store, and I just threw some glue on there and just pressed them into the glue. And it looks like there's some little vines growing down the rocks from these little areas, which again, nice little touch. I kind of liked that, and made everything look a little better. Here I added the railing, painted it the same way, just brown and stuff. And then I counted up each little rung that I had, any little areas where it was connecting, and I decided to add some cool little beads to it that my daughter had. She had some extra little beads for her little bracelets. But overall, man, I think that look at the different layers. Compare that to what we had before. Man, that looks good. Here are the beads. They look like they're like bronze that's been oxidized. And so I took that and just kind of dipped them in some glue and then just pressed them right on there. Super easy. And it just added a little touch to the build that I really liked. And yeah, look at that. Just one for each of those. I think I was one short, so I decided to just leave one off. I think right there, yep, on the front. And I decided, you know what? It got broken off. It's an old tower. That's fine. But look at how great that turned out. Oh my gosh, I love those little beads. I thought they looked great. I did the same thing on the front as well, and it all just turned out just fantastic. So there's kind of it. Let's go ahead and get to some glamour shots so you guys can see the entire build in its glory. Let's take a look at it. Man, seeing these pictures just makes me so happy. This took me a couple months to do. Lots of details, lots of patience. I had to learn a lot here. New techniques I'd never tried before. But man, did it turn out awesome. I can't wait to throw this on the table for my players. I'm really excited about it. Overall, the craft was a blast. If you're worried about trying a big craft like this, I would definitely encourage you, just go for it. What's the worst that could happen? You waste a little material and you fail, but you learn something amazing from it. I've noticed so much that when I'm afraid to fail, I never accomplish anything. And when I decide to put that fear aside and I just try it, a lot of times it comes out great. And even when it doesn't, I learn something amazing, I try again, and then it turns out great. And this Wizard's Tower, I've been needing it for a while. It's going to be perfect for my games, and I love the way it turned out. The details, the different techniques. Look at these shots here with these miniatures. It's going to be great as a Wizard Tower. Maybe it'll be an old tower that this evil necromancer lives in now. We got so much to do with this. Anyways, thank you guys again for checking my videos. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like, maybe even subscribe. I got plenty of other stuff coming your way, coming up in 2024. We over doubled my channel subscribers in just 2 months, which was pretty cool. I haven't really put a lot of effort into advertising my channel, sharing it anywhere. So now that I have a few videos up, I decided I'm really gonna put some effort into that. So if you enjoyed this, like the video, maybe even subscribe, hit that little bell icon so you get alerted when I put up videos. I try to put them up about every 2 weeks. weeks. I got some other stuff in play. I got some video game videos, but I will always get at least 1 to 2 writing and role-playing videos out each month, and that's my goal for 2024. So thank you guys again. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next episode. And as always, good luck with all your writing and role-playing.